Dear students, so welcome back to Property Law HOE 6011, and well, we continue again with transfer of property. So, just a few reminders. I hope you all remember homework 1 and homework 2. The time is ticking, so well, I hope you submit it all in time. And remember, if you don't upload it in Moodle before the deadline, then it cannot be checked, and so then your assignment cannot be graded. And well, I know it's coronavirus time and all that, but seriously, I mean, if you have 30 days to do something and you can't do it in 30 days, then yeah, you need to really sort out your priorities here. All right, so well, everybody has been uploading, so I think we should be fine. Yeah. Um, so where were we last time? We finished off elections, and so we looked at transfer of property and some of these issues. So let's look at joint transfer for consideration. Now that's the next one, and where immovable property is transferred for consideration to two or more persons, and such consideration is paid out of a fund belonging to them in common. They are, in the absence of a contract to the contrary, respectively entitled to interests in such property, in a 50-50 sense. So everybody gets it equal or equally, unless, of course, there are some underlying factors, in which case then these have to be clarified. Yeah, so when you have a joint transfer for consideration, and so this is a situation to be careful about. Of course, you could have different percentages. You could have 60-40 or something, but in such situations you have to be careful about how this is done. And this happens a lot of times, especially under family law. Now it's a bit tricky. In most countries, you have this legal norm that after marriage, whatever property is purchased, immovable property especially, it's 50-50. Yeah? Half belongs to the husband, half belongs to the wife. And this is very very relevant when you are selling property to a married couple, and also when you are purchasing property from a married couple. All right, so these are important elements to keep in mind. Now remember, last time I was giving you all these examples just to illustrate how these provisions for transfer of property are not just simplistic things like transferring apples or bananas or something, but they can have serious ramifications, especially when you look at multi-million, multi-billion euro deals and the problems that can often arise. And very often these problems are extraneous, they are external, they're not really relevant from a strict property law perspective, but you say in law it's never a very single-minded thing that if you're dealing with property, it's only a property issue. It's never like that. There are a lot of other aspects that lawyers have to be aware of. Could be family law, could be taxation law. So all of these are extremely important and should be kept in mind. And just the same like last time I spoke about competition law and all of these things, which is why I mean, a law degree is something that takes time to acquire, and then you have to do your masters, and then of course you need experience in that field, and there are very few lawyers who know every topic under the sun. Generally you have specialists, and so transfer of property is one big specialty. Then transfer for consideration by persons having distinct interests. So where immovable property is transferred for consideration. Now remember, consideration is money. Yeah, that's what it means in Old English. So by persons having distinct interest therein, the transferors. So there's a transferor and a transferee. I transfer to you, so I'm the transferor, you are the transferee. So in the absence of a contract to the contrary, they are entitled to share in the consideration equally, where their interests in the property were of equal value, and where such interests were of unequal value, proportionately to the value of their respective interests. So you have to be again very careful about how this consideration works, and in which context, and who's a transferor and who is entitled to how much. Now, this can especially be very problematic if you are dealing with transactions in a multi jurisdictional format. An example of this would be in many Asian countries, you have these distinctions. There was this English influence, the colonial system, then there was a French colonial system, then there was the Portuguese colonial system, and then there are, of course, regional, traditional legal systems as well. And so they all get very highly mixed up. And this can cause problems because in some countries you have this concept of marriage which gives certain rights, and it can be a bit discriminatory sometimes towards maybe married women, for example. So somebody, there's a brother and a sister, and so the male is expected to be the inheritor, and if the female, the sister, gets married, then her property rights get tied up with her husband's rights, and so you have a lot of these issues. But then you also have problems because, for example, the Portuguese were very secular, and so they had this common law system. This Portuguese family system, which sort of gave equal rights to everybody in the family. And this can be extremely complicated. So you go to some place, maybe Bali, or maybe in Goa, or some tropical place, and you see this nice old house and you want to buy it, and then it turns out that there are like 5 generations of people, and everybody has a small little right to that property. So you have to be very careful about dealing in such situations. Of course, if you're buying a property in Estonia or in Finland, it's a simple matter of going and checking online on the property register and finding out who owns how much or what, and based on that you can conclude the transactions. But again, there can be a lot of issues. So especially when I spoke about this norm that if you are buying from a married couple, then it's presumed that both are 50-50 owners, unless, of course, contractually they agree that the husband is the owner or the wife is the full 100% owner. And I know even some other issues. There were these two Americans in Tallinn, in Estonia, and they had bought some property in Bulgaria, and then one of them wanted to sell it. So it was a flat with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a kitchen and a living room. And then how do you divide a flat? Yeah, so again, lot of problems arise when you deal with such situations. So you have to be very careful as a lawyer because that's due diligence. Now, another issue is improvements made by bona fide holders under defective titles. And this is especially a problem area in the sense, let's say the transferee. So I am the transferor, I have the property, I transfer it to you, you're the transferee. So you are the transferee of immovable property, and now you make any improvement on the property, believing in good faith that you are absolutely entitled thereto, and then you are subsequently evicted therefrom by any person having a better title. Then the transferee still has certain rights, especially with regard to the value of improvements estimated and paid. Now, what's the example of this? So let's say I have a house and I sell it to you, and you are an innocent person. You have no idea that Pawan is this weird Indian guy, who's trying to hoodwink you or fool you or cheat you or something. So you are in good faith. You're believing in good faith. You pay the money, you get into the property, and now you decide to have gold-plated jacuzzi installed, and maybe a helipad, because in the quarantine times it's always better to fly with your own helicopter. And maybe you decide to have a heated swimming pool built inside a greenhouse, and then maybe you decide to have diamond encrusted taps or whatever. And now later somebody else turns up and says that sorry, you've been fooled, and Pawan never had the right to sell you this property, and so you're out. And this matter goes to court, and the court says yes, yeah, Pawan made a fool of you. And of course, you can chase Pawan, and if you grab him, then you can file a lawsuit against him or whatever. Now, in the meantime, what are your rights? You are innocent. You accepted this transfer in good faith, and you had no idea about all these nasty things in the background. So in this situation, the law says that, well, you are entitled to at least get your gold-plated jacuzzi back, and costs for the helicopter trip or whatever. Yeah. So again, some of these are quite extreme examples, but again, you can see over here that the law provides for every sort of situation. And then, of course, sometimes, yeah, even this may not be enough, but then the law has to sort of try to reach a compromise or figure out what is a better solution for you. Then transfer of property pending suit relating thereto. Now this is especially complicated. So let's say Pawan, the bad guy, the transferor, sold the house to you, and so you bought it, and well, you paid, I don't know, 400,000 euros for it. Now somebody turns up from Brazil and says, she is Pawan's ex-wife, and Pawan cheated her, and that's actually her matrimonial home. Her grandfather left it for her, blah blah blah. And so now this matter is in court, and yeah, Pawan is like, I don't know who this Brazilian woman is. And she is like, no, she is my wife, and she has proof and everything, and she's the owner of the property, and she brings up all these old documents and stuff. So now in the meantime, you are there wondering what to do, and so you decide maybe you should just sell this property, and whoever buys it, it can be their problem. And so you want to sell this property for 300,000 just as a distress sale to get out of this mess between Pawan and his Brazilian ex-wife. Now in this situation, of course, there are complications here. Whoever comes to buy this property may not be aware that there is some pending litigation, and so this can cause a lot of problems all around. And in this situation, the law stipulates that if there's any immovable property, then the property cannot be transferred or otherwise dealt with by any party to the suit or proceeding, except under the authority of the court and on such terms as it may impose. All right. So I cannot resell this property or buy this property or do anything with this property that I have sold to you, and you cannot just sell this property off because this is a court matter now and this is litigation. I know this sounds quite stupid. Yeah, I mean, why would anybody do this? But very often these sort of situations arise, and well, if you play your cards correctly, you can have some very good deals also. It's like, there's an economic crisis right now of sorts, and so you have restaurants and hotels, and they are in a bad situation because there is this global shutdown. There are no tourists, so what do? You have Scandic hotels in Helsinki. Who's sitting in them? Who's living in them? Why would anybody come to Helsinki during a coronavirus pandemic? Now, of course, these people have a lot of financial issues, and maybe they have taken loans from the bank, and now the bank, up to a point, can try to be accommodative, but then the bank may say, hey, this is really good property, so let's grab this property now, and you're not able to pay your bills because you are the hotel owner, nice Finnish person or Estonian person, and you don't have any funds anymore. And now, so it's a 5 million euro hotel, maybe 10 million euro hotel, and the bank is trying to auction it off to get back its money. And so always there's a good deal in this sort of situation. So you'll always find some Indian guy, Chinese guy, somebody who's trying to get in, and you can buy a bank led sale. You can buy a hotel through a bank led sale, and 10 million euro property can go for 5 million, 7 million. So of course that's a lot of savings. So there's always a lot of demand for such properties because they are not being sold at the market price, and they're not being sold precisely because there's a lawsuit going on, there is litigation, there are all sorts of problems and things. And so of course you have to be very careful when you buy such property. Then there is fraudulent transfer, and well, fraudulent transfer works in also many ways. So you can see over here, every transfer of immovable property made with intent to defeat or delay the creditors of the transferor shall be voidable at the option of any creditor so defeated or delayed. Now, I can give you some examples of this. Well, in Estonia there was this Danske Bank scandal, and it was a big thing. Money laundering happened and stuff. So 200 billion, people say. Some people say 250 billion. No idea. Too much stuff. So there's a lot of scandal, and a lot of controversy about that. Now, there were some of these people who were working in that bank, the branch in Tallinn, and so what one of them did was he had bought some immovable properties using the bribe money and stuff. And when it became apparent, now this matter has gone to press, it's gone to the police, and there'll be an investigation. So what he did was he tried to transfer the flat from his name to his father-in-law's name, yeah, something like that, just to show that there's nothing in his name in the register, and he has no properties, but actually it's in the name of his father-in-law, and he is living there with his wife and children as a tenant of his father-in-law and stuff. So you see what's happening here. Basically, there's a fraudulent transfer, and of course, this was a criminal case, but you often always have this very often in civil cases as well, as in civil versus criminal. So what's happening here is I take a loan from a bank and I have a house, and now I can't pay back the loan for some reason, or there's a dispute with the bank, and well, the bank is saying, hey, Pawan, you owe us 1 million, pay it up. And I say, I don't have the money, and they say, well, you have a house. And so I say, well, I don't have the house, I transferred it to my dog keeper's girlfriend. What the hell is that? So of course these are fraudulent transfers, and it's being done basically to avoid creditors. So even if the creditors get a decree or a judgment from a court of law that Pawan has to pay 1 million euros, or else Pawan has to give all his properties, house, car, clothes, underwear, whatever, to the bank. And then it turns out that, Pawan says, I have nothing. Where is it? I don't know. I have nothing. Nothing is in my name. It's in my cousin's name, or in my, somebody else's name, or whatever. My girlfriend's third ex-boyfriend's name. You can do all these crazy things. And all of this is, of course, fraudulent transfer. Now, remember, when we talk about fraudulent, it's basically fraud. And these are especially under English law, very relevant. There is coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, mistake. And in all of these situations, we have seen over here what happens when property is transferred. All right, so again, law of obligations, law of contracts, transfer of property law, family law, compliance laws, competition law, criminal law, all of these laws sort of play a role over here. And it's not correct to assume that you just have to deal with property law and that's it. As a good law student or as a good lawyer, you need to be able to see 5 different laws and figure out the implications. That's why you're a lawyer. That's what you're paid to do. It's not like you want to buy a property, so you just look at property law and that's the end of it. There are a lot of issues that can arise which have to be taken into account. All right, so transfer of property over. Not one of my favorite subjects. Too many things to explain, and too many ifs and buts, and too many probabilities and possibilities and permutations and combinations. But I hope with the examples I've been able to illustrate how this can be a real deal breaker, and so how the law deals with such issues. Again, remember, when we talk about fraudulent transfer, it's not void, it's voidable. Again, there are some inbuilt protection measures for transferee in good faith, or if there are insolvency issues. So sometimes maybe the best thing to do if Pawan has lots of money problems is to just declare bankruptcy. So you go through insolvency proceedings, and in the past, if you declared yourself insolvent, you could be sent to prison and stuff, but that doesn't happen anymore, not in Europe at least, although it does happen in the Middle East sometimes. So you have to be careful where you do what. Again, remember, this is just a very general property law course where we talk about different possibilities. just because it may make sense in Finland doesn't mean that it will make sense in Kuwait. Why should you bother about Kuwait? Well, you never know, all right? These are rich countries too, and they have their own things that are of interest. A lot of people buy property in Dubai, for example. Yeah? And also, then as a lawyer, maybe you have foreign clients from Asia or somewhere else who say that maybe if they buy a sizable chunk of property in some European country, it used to be Malta, then Latvia, many such places. Then, if you make an investment of 500,000 or 1 million euros or something, then you get entitled to a green card or, an equivalent of a long-term residence permit. So there are a lot of these interests that people have. So you could have these, you could have a Finnish businessman who wants to hide his money by setting up a company in Dubai, because there you have less corporate tax and things. So it's very common how these things work out. Same with Brexit now. If you want to have a business in Europe but you have a British passport, then again all of these issues come up. Or with a Russian passport, for example. So property actually is very relevant, and plays a big role in how things are done with. So this property is not just an investment by itself, but also a means of securing long-term residence permit rights or permissions. So again, these have implications that need to be taken into account. All right, so well, that's over. Now the next issue, well, of course, you need to read about adverse possession. It's not for the exam, but there is this document here, 74 pages, and it's very relevant because it deals with a very serious aspect of the law, and this is transfer of property in a way as well. So transfer of property could be of movable property, could be of immovable property, and you often come across all sorts of cases about this. Like today in the news, there was this case, some artwork which had been stolen from a Jewish family by the Nazis and then sold on in France to somebody else. And now Israel is saying they want it back, or some Jewish family descendants are saying they want it back. So you have a lot of these issues that come up with transfer of property. And when you're dealing with such issues, of course, not in a criminal law sense, but in a civil law sense, then there's also this aspect of limitation. There is the aspect of innocent third parties who are buyers. I don't know where this thing came from. How am I to know that your grandfather was a SS general, and robbed something from some poor family of whoever, and now 5 generations later I bought this artwork, and now it turns out that it was stolen in 1937 from Vienna. So of course, you have a lot of these issues that come up, and I'm not just talking about criminal law but also civil law. So you can see how transfer of property can have implications in these sort of issues. So again, yeah, keep that in mind. Now we look at sale, mortgage, lease, exchange, and gift. Now these are the classic five, and all of these have implications. Sooner or later you're going to buy property, or you're going to sell property, or you're going to deal with such things. And of course, and it can be quite tricky sometimes. How do you finance a property? How do you buy it or something? I knew some Finnish students, yeah, and it was quite crazy. I mean, they were doing the bachelor studies, so they were getting 400 or something from Kela every month, and then if you do masters, then you get 800 euros per month. And there was this one Finnish guy who was doing 2 masters at the same time. Yeah, he was getting like 1,600 every month. So I think he did double bachelor and then double master over a period of 5-6 years. And so, well, this is interesting. But then what he told me was that he managed to take a loan from a Finnish bank based on some security that was furnished by his parents, yeah, maybe the house in Finland or something. And so the bank gave the loan, and on that basis, he bought a flat in Tallinn from some Finnish construction company developers, property, developers or somebody. And so this was where near Coca-Cola Plaza, yeah, Rotterdam side. A lot of Finnish students I knew had bought flats over there, and well, they stayed there, and after they passed out, and they were paying the installments by from Kella's contribution every month, and then after they passed out, then they rented it out, or these rented these flats out to other Finnish students, and they had this full infrastructure, and you could be sitting in Helsinki and you do all the deals, and you were dealing with property in Estonia, uh, buying it, selling it, renting it, whatever. And so, of course, these are all interesting issues, but now we look at these from a legal viewpoint, all right? Because not all banks would be comfortable in dealing with properties which are situated in a foreign country. Now, German banks, may not really be very keen about financing or co-financing a property acquisition in the Baltics or somewhere else. So again, you have a lot of these issues that come up. So we'll be looking at some of these matters, and sort of the legal implications and things. Of course, the law is very clear, and you can see in the notes also what is a sale, how do you define it, what are obligations, rights, and duties, of both parties, the buyer, the seller. The seller is the transferor, the buyer is the transferee. All of those sort of things are there. They're quite clear cut. And those of you who are renting a flat, well, you'll also probably see a lot of commonalities over here. So maybe I'll try to deal more with issues that are relevant in the context of some examples and things, because that's my strong point here. I give examples. And then, of course, if you look in the Moodle notes, there's also this whole provision about duties and obligations, and then all sorts of weird houses, and the problems that can arise. So, for example, I've given some examples here. Now, there's a house built on a landfill. Then there's a snake house. Yeah, so what does it mean? Well, you could have such situations where a lot of problems arise. So let's look at it in a classic way. There was this tower, Millennium Tower or something in Los Angeles, and it was built like the super tall skyscraper, and I don't even know how many floors, 40, 50, 70 floors or something, and very high end expensive penthouse flats in each floor, and stuff. So this was like the address to be in Los Angeles, and a lot of people made purchases, and they bought flats here, and just for living yourself or for renting it out, Airbnb, whatever. I mean, before the pandemic, life was really amazing. Yeah, you could take 10 million and turn it into 12 million. So of course things were really possible, and so that's the tower. It's very nice. And then well, one day the tower becomes a bit like this, yeah, like the Leaning Tower of Pizza. So it's the Leaning Tower of Los Angeles. And of course, it's not fun anymore. I mean, you have a $40 million penthouse suite in that tower, and now it's like this. So when you look out, everything looks like this. You take a football or a ball and it rolls on the floor. Yes, of course, that's not a good sign. And cracks started to develop, and people realized some really serious problems are going on here. And so what do you do? Well, you're the owner of the flat association, whatever. And who do you catch? You catch the builder, of course. So they called the builder and they said, what the hell, what have you delivered to us in less than 5 years? It's like tilting like this. And then the builder said, look, I did everything properly, and I took all the permissions, and there is this city engineering department and architectural department and all of those people, and the fire brigade and fire department, and all of these people have checked the process. They agreed to the project, and now they were involved in all the decision making areas. They did all the inspections. So I don't know, it's not my problem. And the builder said, well, I made the house perfectly, the apartment, the skyscraper, but then Next to the skyscraper was a plot of land, and the city decided to make an underground bus terminal. So they dug, the excavated the land around that part, and so maybe because of that, the foundations got messed up. The city department said, transportation department said, hey, we don't know what this builder is talking about. Normally, when a skyscraper is so tall up 100 floors up, then it tends to be at least 7 8 floors down as well. And this builder, architect, engineer, whoever, has made a foundation which is not really suitable for such tall structures because of the geology. So you see what's happening here is everybody is trying to pass the buck and say, it's not our fault, it's not our problem, it's somebody else's problem. So the builder is saying it's the transportation department's problem. The transportation department is saying it's the architect's problem or the design problem. The geologist is saying it's everybody's problem. And what do you do as a purchaser of property? So you bought a flat, $40 million flat is now worthless, right? Who will buy a flat in a leaning tower of Pisa, right? So of course, this can have serious consequences. So these are some examples of property disputes that can arise. And another question that comes up here is, I bought a flat for 40 million. Whom do I catch? You can't tell me the answer is nobody. That's not the answer. So what are the rights and obligations? For how long? What are the implications? Maybe something like this happened, and so the American guy said, well, it's 40 million. I need to get out of this, and before I really burn my fingers. So there's this crazy guy in India who likes all these deals. So they call me and say, hey, Pawan, deal of a century, $40 million flat selling for 5 million. Are you interested? And I'll be like, yeah, of course. And so I come here and I buy the property without even checking it out, because it's Los Angeles and it's America, and America is the best, and what can go wrong in America? And then what are my rights? What are my liabilities? Is it caveat emptor, which is buyer beware? Yeah. So this is an example. Then same like the house built on a landfill. So again, some issues that come up over there. Who gave the permission? How did this happen? Who's responsible? So again, you have all sorts of these issues. Now another aspect to be very careful about is when you talk about sale, mortgage, lease, exchange, and gift. Why should we insist on these definitions? Yeah, they're very important and they play a very significant role, because sometimes if it's a sale, there's a different tax treatment. If there's a gift, there's a different tax treatment. If there is something, whatever, it's a will, whatever, you have different issues that come up. And so a lot of these situations can be dealt with by being very creative. Yeah. So what's the example of that? Like, for example, let's say I have a company and I'm 100% shareholder in the company. Now, the company buys property in its own name. Yeah. In effect, well, I'm the 100% shareholder, I'm the director, I'm the employer, I'm the employee, I am the janitor, I am the secretary, I am everything. So of course, I am the owner, but no, I'm the shareholder, I'm the employee, whatever, or director, but the company owns the property. Now, well, if I want to transfer this property, either the company can sell the property, or I could sell my 100% shares to you, and now you become the 100% shareholder. So the shares may be worth just whatever, 10,000 euros or something, market price, or fixed price. On the paper you have the price, and then there's a market price, but actually it doesn't take into account the fact that the property is worth a lot much more. So you have a situation here now where I have not sold the house, I've sold my shares, and well, by buying my shares, you have become the shareholder of a company which owns property. So again, these are very significant issues. The same like if I want to buy Finnair, I don't buy the company, I buy the shares in the company, and if I buy enough shares, I can become a director on the board of directors, and then I can take a plane for my own joyride because I'm almost part owner in a way. Yeah. So again, company law of course has its own uh, idiosyncrasies and a lot of issues. Shareholder is not the owner, director is not the owner, managing director is not the owner, chairman is not the owner. So what the hell is going on? So of course there are a lot of these issues. Another thing could be, again, to play it smart. So let's say I sell the house to you. House is worth 10 million euros. Then I have to pay tax. Yeah, presuming it's a commercial thing and it's not like a family home, and all of those little side issues that come up. Because if it's a family home, then the first home that you sell after 5 years is not taxable. It's tax free. Let's not go into that. Let's just say I'm in the business of selling, you're in the business of buying, and I have a couple of houses, so I sell you one house for 10 million. And if I do that and you buy it, then of course there's an issue here. The issue here would be, how would this sale be taxed? Yeah, we have a tax component to it. It could be 20%, it could be 30%. In some countries, you have capital gains tax. It's not just the price that you're getting today, so 10 million. But suppose I bought the house for 1 million 10 years ago and now I'm selling it for 10 million. Then again, capital gains tax takes into account the fact that I have made money from buying something for 1 million and selling for 10 million. So there are a lot of these issues that come up. Now, one way to deal with this would be, I don't want to sell it, because if I sell it and I put that label sale, then there are these tax issues. So what if I file a lawsuit against you and I say that you are somehow dishonest or something, and then you say that you supplied some stuff to me, or you did some painting job for me and I owe you money, and I say no, it's a dispute and I don't owe you anything at all or whatever, and I owe you, you claim that I owe you 1 million, and I say no, I don't owe you so much or whatever. All right, so we have a lawsuit in a court of law. Maybe it's some electrical contracting job or whatever. All right, and now so we have this law dispute, and then we go to the court and say one day that we want to settle this dispute because we have been fighting and this is stupid and we don't want to waste the court's time. So the judge will be like, yeah, very good, okay, yeah. And so I say, well, as part of this court dispute settlement, I have this house and we are fighting about the electrical contract work or the painting work or something. So whatever your bill is, okay, fine, I give you my house, and you don't claim any more money from me. Yeah, well, that sounds good on paper, and then you get a court stamped order saying that yes, the parties have settled and the dispute is taken care of. Now you see what's happened here is, if this was a sale, I would have to pay taxes and do all sorts of things. But if I manage to do it in this weird way, then I just have to pay court fees, and I get a transfer done through a court order, and so a lot of these sort of situations arise. They're very weird, and well, of course, it's always a cat and mouse game. The tax authorities always have to be alert to find out who are these crazy people who are doing all sorts of things, because remember, 20% on 10 million is quite a lot of money. So these are all issues to be careful about, and so we'll be talking about these and many other issues. But let's stop here for today. So we'll be looking next time at sale of immovable property and different aspects to it. So for today, you have learned about transfer of property, and then read this adverse possession note. It's a bit bulky. It should keep you busy for a week's time, and hopefully make you understand a lot of these concepts. And so let's stop here now, and then we meet again next week, and deal with next issues. All right, so thank you and take care. Goodbye.